Why would you want to run your own self-development experiments? Well, let's go over some of the reasons. One is simply for the memories. One of my favorite ones that I did for the memories was going to Disneyland with Rochelle, my wife, for 30 days in a row. And beautiful experience. Just having that memory of spending a month of my life at Disneyland, doing nothing but just having fun with a woman I love. And just us going out every day and having fun there together. And just a month of fun and remembering that. That's a beautiful memory. So that's one reason to do things is, to do an experiment to see how it will change you to have the memory of that. I thought it will improve my life for the better if I have that memory. And is it worth a month of my life to do it? Yeah, I thought so. Another reason is to have a new experience, something that causes you to grow. I remember a little over 15 years ago, Rochelle and I invited our first threesome. So we had that experience, and it was different than we expected. It was actually very loving. Or having, my first psychedelic trip a little over 5 years ago with 4 nights of ayahuasca ceremonies in Costa Rica. And I've had many more since then. But doing that first experience, that first new experience, doing something new, it's very transformational. It expands your sense of possibility, teaches you something about yourself. I like to use the phrase, embrace the new, because doing something new is always expansive. Another reason to do a self-development experiment is you want to discover what's optimal for you. And one of the things I discovered there is I like being a morning person. I like being an early riser. Getting up usually before dawn is really nice. Yesterday I got up extra early, like 4 a.m. And that's just my favorite time of day, is like being awake early in the morning. I tend to be most productive during that time, most creative. And I've experimented with being a night person too, and it's just a different way of living. And so I settled on being an early riser from a lot of experimentation. Another thing that experimentation led me to was going vegetarian. I did that in 1993, starting with a 30-day challenge to see if I could do it and see what it was like. And then 3.5 years later, in 1997, I did the same thing with going vegan for 30 days. And both of those experiments have continued indefinitely to this day. And I feel like definitely I want to be a vegan. I want to stay plant-based because it works for me. It was like way, way better, especially mentally, especially emotionally. It just erased all kinds of problems, like no worries about depression or low energy or things like that. Just all the problems I had when I ate animal products just went out the window, gone for good. And not having to worry about those things anymore. Just so much better energy. And that I could tell was more optimal for me. So I found that a big mistake is not to experiment enough, because if I don't experiment enough, I'm going to miss out on some of those huge gains. If I never went vegan, I'd be missing out on so many gains that stem from that I never would have gotten to experience. And so I'm glad I thought to do those experiments back then. Another thing is like doing productivity experiments. That really helped me zone into what works for me. And it wasn't work that well for other people. So my rhythms, are different. And so learning your own personal rhythms is something you can do with a lot of experimenting in the self-development space. You can also learn more about yourself. You can discover things about yourself. Like, what do you learn by, say, doing a blogging experiment? That's something I did a few years back, I was going to do a year of blogging like every day, and I ended up going, I think, 374 days in a row of blogging. So posting something to my blog every day, continuously, including weekends. And that taught me something about myself. One is like, okay, I can endure. I've also done experiments where I've exercised every day for a year, say a minimum of like 25, 30 minutes or so, exercise every day for a year and not skip a day. Even if I'm sick, if it's raining, whatever, just still go exercise. And that taught me something about myself too. How about testing a different approach to life? This is one of my favorite types of experiments, is try living differently for a while. One of my favorite ones that I did there was doing 30 days of interacting with the world and imagining that I was living in a dream world. Like reality is really, really subjective in nature, and not treating things as so solid and objective, but imagining I'm in a lucid dream all the time. And even talking to people like they were dream characters. That was a really interesting thing to explore. That was one of my favorite experiments because people humored me. And I said, I'm going to talk to you like you're a dream character because I'm doing this experiment. And they would be like, all right, yeah, I'm a figment of your imagination. We would have interactions based on that. It was really fun and really eye-opening. And I was surprised that it worked. It worked so well. If anything, I think it made my life better during that time. And so testing a different approach to life can help us stretch and, beyond our default mode of living and try something new, try something quite potentially more engaging. And that was a really, powerful thing to open up. Another reason you can experiment is to gain a new skill. You want to learn something during that time. So I did some self-development experiments related to lucid dreaming and learned how to lucid dream. And that was really cool. Lucid dreaming is when you become conscious in your dreams. And of course, you might see there's a connection between learning lucid dream in your nighttime dreams and being able to take control of your dreams and also doing like a waking subjective reality experiment. So I was able to use what I learned from lucid dreaming at night and apply it to waking life and find that I found that there was an interesting connection there. So sometimes when you experiment for one reason, it'll beget experiments in other directions. So you can gaining a skill. So to this day, I can still lucid dream now and then. Not perfectly consistently, but generally when I want to have a lucid dream, I can start having one within a few days, a few nights. Another reason to do self-development experiments is that you can create value for others if you document what you learned along the way. So I did that with my polyphasic sleep experiment like 20 years ago. Doing 30 days of eating all raw. There's another experiment where I documented everything on my website all along the way. Doing 40 days of water fasting and doing daily videos along the way. That's still here on my YouTube channel. So being able to create those resources for other people, it may not be the only reason to do it, but it's certainly something that can provide extra motivation for doing something. When I know that the experiment I'm doing is not just about me and my own learning, but could potentially create ripples and benefits for others too, that increases my motivation to do it. It's actually, in some cases, tipped me over the edge in getting me to decide to do something because I thought, no matter how it goes, at least it'll create some value for other people to have the data, to know how it went for one person. Another type of experiment you can do is to speed along your results in some area, like doing 30 days of decluttering. So declutter for a certain amount of time, maybe 10 minutes, maybe a half hour every day for 30 days in a row. And now you've gotten a lot of decluttering done. But you also learn something about your ability to get things done. Like when you make a 30-day commitment, can you keep it every day? Can you move something forward progressively by chipping away at it? That's something I learned about myself. I'm really good at doing 30-day challenges. When I commit to one, I rarely ever quit along the way, except when there's maybe like a health issue or something like it's dangerous or very risky to continue. But generally, if I can keep going, I'll make it to all 30 days, and then I learn something about myself, and I also can get a result along the way. One of my favorite types of self-development experiences is to do some kind of community building. I've been doing that for decades, really. Created a indie game developer forum when I was an indie game developer myself and invited other people from the field to contribute and collaborate with each other, and that was great. It continued going for many years afterwards. Another one was building a self-development community, which I did through online forums from 2006 to 2010, ran that for 5 years, getting a great big community, about 50,000 members we had going, and, experimenting with that and seeing what it was like for all that engagement and interaction socially. Eventually, I burned out on that approach, but then refined it years later, and in 2017, did Conscious Growth Club, and that's still going today. We're just wrapping up our 8th year together and about to start our 9th year on May 1st. And turning a self-development, experiment into a social journey and inviting other people to experiment and explore with you is super rewarding. It really is, because you get to learn not only from your own perspective, but from other people's perspectives too. Openness to new experience is really a choice. It's something you can choose for yourself, and you don't need other people's permission to keep experimenting. In fact, I find one of the key benefits, another key reason to keep exploring and keep doing self-development experiments, is that it prevents people from boxing you in and thinking they've got you all figured out, because you keep people guessing. Then people think they can predict your behavior and they know exactly who you are, and they pigeonhole you, and they sort of treat you in such a way that their expectations of you can start seeping in and becoming your own expectations of yourself. And that's something to prevent, because then you lose flexibility. You lose your connection to the possibility space. You end up becoming loyal to other people's expectations, and then those become your own expectations. But if you continue to explore and to experiment in different ways, then you're always keeping people guessing. And I'll tell you, people often object, like people who think they know me and then they see me go off in some new direction, say like exploring psychedelics. They'll be thrown aback or taken aback by it. But the ones who know me really well, they know I'm a growth-oriented person. So it's on them to upgrade their opinion of me. If they think that they've got me all figured out and they've just pigeonholed me into this little box and that that's who I'm going to be for them for the rest of our lives, they're sorely mistaken. And the friends who can allow space for me to be flexible and to continue growing, those are the friendships that endure. They know I'm going to keep moving around and shifting and trying different things because I'm very, very curious. So that's an important thing to make sure you don't let your social circle box you in and become a source of drag on your ability to change and your ability to grow. You don't want to be facing social resistance every time you try to do something new. So I'll ask you that. Can you create changes? Can you switch cities, switch jobs, switch your sense of purpose, go in a different direction in life, switch from doing, non-creative work to creative work and have social support for that and have people go, oh, great. Yeah. And we wish you well because they're encouraging your exploration and your experimentation. That I find is one of the best reasons to keep experimenting is it weeds out the people who are going to just hold you back and not align with you being a person of continued ongoing growth. So it really is important to continue to stretch yourself. And if that means violating some people's crusty old expectations of you, so be it. Because that keeps your expectations of yourself from getting old and crusty and sticking too much in your comfort zone. What this gives you, all this experimentation, is freedom. The freedom to experiment is powerful. And so if you continue to invest in, to commit yourself to lifelong experimenting, you not only get tons of gains, but you also get to have a very rich, flexible, and robust life of tremendous freedom and joy and possibility.